Yeah, there's a kind of barrier that most, in fact all materialists just cannot go through. Yes, I understand that I'm conscious, I understand that everybody else is conscious, I'm open to the possibility that we all share the same consciousness, I'm open to the possibility that all animals share the same consciousness as we do, but there's a line drawn right down through the middle of creation. That those of us on this side, all the human beings and the animals have consciousness, and everything on the other side of the line doesn't have consciousness. In other words, it's made of matter. And this is a belief that even long-term meditators, long-term teachers, they are so wedded to their materialist beliefs that no matter the level of their intelligence, and some of these guys are extremely intelligent, they just cannot, they're not even open to the possibility that the nature of a thing could be consciousness without that thing being conscious. We understand that the nature of ourself is consciousness because we are conscious. But that table is obviously not conscious. When we kick it, it doesn't, as far as we know, experience, it doesn't show any sign of experiencing pain. Why? Because it doesn't have internal experience. Why? Because it's not conscious. Therefore, it cannot be made of consciousness. It must be made of something other than consciousness, and then we invent this substance called matter to account for it. So is there any evidence for the claim that the likes of Bernardo and I make that the ultimate reality of everything, including inanimate objects, is also consciousness? Well, take your own experience. Take a thought, for instance. Would you agree that in your experience a thought appears in consciousness?
Yes.
Would you agree that a thought is made of the consciousness in which it appears?
Yes.
Is a thought itself conscious? Can a thought, for instance, listen to our conversation?
No.
Can a thought feel pain?
No.
Can a thought experience anything?
No, it's an object of consciousness.
It's an object of consciousness, but it appears in consciousness and is made of consciousness. It's not an object outside consciousness like the materialists claim the table is. So we have direct, first-hand experience of an object, namely a thought, appearing in consciousness, made of consciousness, but which is not itself conscious. We're having that experience all the time. Take the sensation of your hand on the mic. Is it appearing in consciousness?
Yes.
Is it made of consciousness?
Yes.
Perfect. Is it itself conscious?
No.
Is it listening to our conversation?
No.
No, of course it's not.
That's very good. Yeah.
So, if this is our experience, and it is everyone's experience, that we continually experience objects in consciousness, made of consciousness, that are not themselves conscious, why is it such a big leap to suggest that this object may be in consciousness, made of consciousness, but not itself conscious? All we're doing is extrapolating a known category of experience, that is something that we actually experience, and considering that it applies to other objects. It's entirely rational, scientific, plausible, in line with the evidence of experience.
Very good. That does it for me.
So all we're saying that our finite minds are a mini field of consciousness in which objects, like a thought, arises, made out of the consciousness in which it appears, but is not itself conscious. It is an inanimate object. Now, consider not just a finite mind, but infinite mind, infinite consciousness, and then consider that everything that appears within it is made of it, appears in it and is made of it, but not necessarily itself conscious. Take another example. When you have a dream at night, you dream you dream the streets of Paris within your own mind, but you don't view the streets of Paris. You've heard the guy on YouTube talking about this. You don't view the streets of Paris directly from your bed in Burlingame. You localize yourself. Your own mind, the dreamer's mind, localizes itself on the streets of Paris as the separate subject of experience within its own dream. And everything else that it looks at, the cars, the trees, the buildings, the sky, none of that appears to be conscious. It appears to be made out of inert matter from the perspective of the dreamed character. But when we wake up, we realize that the entire dream was made out of the consciousness of our own, albeit finite mind. It was only from the localized perspective of the character in the dream that the experience on the inside seemed to be made out of consciousness, or mind, and the experience on the outside seemed to be made out of matter. Now, could it be that exactly the same thing is happening here, that infinite consciousness is having a dream, so to speak, and instead of localizing itself as a single point of view within its own dream, it localizes itself as numerous points of view, and from each of our point of view, what takes place on the inside of us is made out of mind, or consciousness, thoughts and feelings, and what takes place on the outside of us is made out of matter. There's a direct correlation between these two states. Could it be that the dream state is a replica of what is taking place in the universal consciousness on a smaller scale? And then when we, so to speak, wake up, we realize that the entire universe is not made out of matter. It is the activity of infinite consciousness, just like the dream we have at night is the activity of a finite mind. That the entire universe is the activity of infinite consciousness that only looks like it's made out of matter when it is viewed from a localized perspective within that universe. And that, to me, it's rational. It's scientific, it's in line with our experience, by which I mean the only substance that we have used to describe reality is the substance that we experience, consciousness. Is anyone here currently experiencing anything other than the knowing of their experience? Is anyone here having an experience that is not me, simply the knowing of that experience? And if we were to ask all 8 billion of us, as long as they understood the question, are you experiencing anything other than the knowing of experience? They'd all have to say no. Knowing, the knowing of experience is all that is ever experienced, is all that could ever be experienced. So knowing or consciousness is the only thing that has ever been experienced. Everything else, apart from consciousness, is just abstraction. Something that has never been experienced and could never be experienced. So what we're doing here is building a model of reality that relies on the given facts of experience. We're being proper scientists. We're saying, what do we know for certain? We know there is consciousness. That's in fact all we know for certain. Okay, let's build a model of the universe, going very slowly, for those of us that want to build models of the universe, going very slowly, based on what we know for sure. What the materialist does is presume a substance outside consciousness, called matter, which nobody has ever found. Scientists have been looking for it for 2,500 years. They haven't found it. They won't ever find it. abstract or imagine this substance called matter outside consciousness, they then consider that substance, matter, to be the fundamental reality, and then they imagine in a convoluted line of reasoning that they then imagine that consciousness is derived from matter. They believe that the only thing that is ever truly known is derived from something that is never known. It's madness. And then look around. Look around at the world. Look at the despair and the conflict in the world. And could these two things be related? The fact that our view of reality is completely upside down. Could the symptom of that upside down thinking be the despair and the conflict we find in the world? I would suggest they were directly correlated, and that they won't ever change until our view of reality changes. That's why here we don't talk too much about political issues and racial issues and gender issues and all these kind of things, all of which are important. Don't get me wrong. They're important. They need to be discussed. But until our view of reality changes, nothing we do temporarily to do with any of those issues or related issues will make much difference. We're just moving the furniture around. It'll be the same 100 years' time, 200 years' time. Nothing much will have changed. Because all of those situations, all of those crises that we find in our culture, they're all symptoms of something that is deeper. You have to go to the primary cause of all these symptoms. What is the primary cause? Our view of reality, our mistaken view of reality.